Welcome back to the show. Today we have Andrew Weinreich. He's a serial entrepreneur. Andrew, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you on the show. You've done the radio version of the show a while ago, and I thought you've done so much and you have so much experience in the space. But maybe before we kind of get into what you're doing now, let's get to know you a little bit better and quickly kind of cover where you grew up and where you went to school, and then we'll dive into kind of your career.
I grew up outside of New York,
Okay.
in Westchester.
Yeah.
Undergraduate was the University of Pennsylvania, and then I went to Fordham Law School.
Okay. And then, so you graduate, you've had a crazy successful career in tech. Kind of quickly walk us through that career, because you kind of were one of the first people to do a social network, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I graduate, spend a year in investment banking, and a year and a half, actually almost 2 years practicing law. It was like I was progressing through the worst professions for me. So I started what was the very first online social network, a company called 6degrees.
Right.
And that was this idea that we could index relationships in a single place, see the people you don't know through the people you do, and fundamentally change or accelerate the way people discovered new relationships, whether that was a recommendation for a doctor or making a new friend. That underlying infrastructure of a contact manager online was first introduced really with 6degrees. So 6degrees, we were probably the largest community site from 97 to 99.
Wow.
Sold that business and then have started a number of other businesses since, all focused on spaces where I thought I could play a disruptive role in reinventing an industry. So a company called Joltage, where we said there will be high-speed connectivity, wireless connectivity in public places. Someone's got to build the infrastructure for that. A company called I Stand For, before candidates really thought about fundraising as a online activity, micro donations. We were one of the very first to build sort of a campaign in a box SaaS solution. I launched with my current partner a mobile dating company before the iPhone was introduced. We were reverse translating the positions of phones. Sold that to Match. A mobile CRM called Xtify, we sold to IBM. A business analytics company that the same guy that co-founded MeetMoi and Xtify with me. We started a company called Indicative, which is doing really well, a business analytics company. And then I run a boot camp for startups, and I have a podcast called Predicting Our Future.
No, very cool. Very cool. So I want to step back for a second. You've started some huge companies and you've got acquired by some big companies. How do you kind of come up with the ideas for these companies? Because you're solving kind of huge problems that aren't simple.
Yeah. So one of the things, when I decided I'm not going to practice law, I'm not going to be in banking, one of the prerequisites for me was I want to be excited. I want to wake up every day and be excited about a space. And
Sure.
That simply identifying the biggest economic opportunity or simply identifying where there's going to be disruption, if I can't find passion around the space, if I can't connect with it personally, then it makes no difference to me how big it is. I can't maintain any momentum unless I'm driven by passion. And I found that in all of the businesses, that's the recurring theme. That said, when I'm ready to start a business, I try to identify areas that I'm broadly interested in and then get really smart in them. And so that means speaking with everyone I can and asking them, what's going on in this space? What's going on in big data? Or how would you reinvent dating? It seems to make little sense that it's a desktop-driven experience. What would it look like if it was mobile? So I try to get really, really smart in a space. And then once I get really smart in a space, I write down my thoughts.
Okay.
And my test for myself, because I know that I can quickly write down thoughts and then get excited about the next business and lose my interest in this business is I try to identify people that I think would be good sounding boards for the business. And then I freely share my thoughts. I tell everyone my thoughts, as opposed to the sense of like, keep them close to the vest and be secretive. I share with as many people as will listen what it is that I'm thinking about doing. And I gauge the excitement or the rationale of the business and whether I should persist, actually start the business, not on whether the people that I'm looking for feedback like the idea. When I started 6 Degrees, nobody liked the idea. I mean, everyone thought,
sure, interesting.
First of all, starting an internet business, that wasn't clear that that was intelligent, let alone this idea that you don't really have a business model and you're just going to try to people to acknowledge that they know other people. I gauge my likelihood, or I gauge whether or not it's appropriate for me to progress based on my excitement about an idea 3 months after I generate the idea. And always exactly 3 months, it could be longer. But usually what happens is that you generate these ideas and you lose excitement. And so that's my own process for deciding to move forward with the business.
So, and I know there's kind of a mixed opinion on this, but do you feel like you need to be from that industry to start a business in that industry? It sounds like no, because of all the research you do. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, but I don't even think there's mixed I don't think there should be mixed thoughts on that. When I recently keynoted a builders conference.
Okay.
And one of the subjects that came up on one of the first areas that I explored was factory built housing. And so I was speaking to a group of builders.
Okay.
Where I had the least experience in the room in building. Every single person in the room had spent decades, their entire career, thinking about construction and development and all of the things associated with it. And I've been thinking about factory built housing for the past 6 months. And the reason they asked me to speak is because I had posited this thesis that there is yet to be a Tesla of factory built homes. But 20 years from now, it may be that every single apartment building and every single home is built inside of a factory.
Sure.
And I put up a slide. I want to answer your question about, do you need experience in space?
Sure.
And I put up a slide of a picture of Jeff Bezos, a picture of Steve Jobs, and a picture of Elon Musk. And I said, what do these people have in common? And because Jeff Bezos had no experience in retail before Amazon.
Sure.
And Elon Musk had no experience in automobiles before Tesla.
Sure.
Steve Jobs, when he launched the iPhone, Nokia ran supreme, right? The companies that were dominant in the phone space, Nokia and Ericsson, and all of a sudden, you're not even familiar with those companies anymore. Nokia had to sell to Microsoft. So, and then I said, who is likely to be the winner in this space of factory-built housing? Is it likely to be any of you? Or is it likely to be someone who's prepared to rethink this problem from scratch who has no experience? And the conclusion I said was, it's going to be someone who has no experience. So I think, if you think about the industries where we've seen massive disruption, most of them have been disrupted. This is, I think in modern history, by people with no experience whatsoever in the space.
Yeah, it's because I think they don't understand what you can and can't do. They're just like, well, I'm just going to figure it out, right? Like, this doesn't make sense, so I'm just going to figure it out.
Yeah, they're not constrained by an old way of doing things. And the great breakthrough for a Tesla, for example, like the brilliance of a Tesla is not that they figured out how to make a battery more efficient, or to make an engine, an electric, an engine, that is an electric engine. It's that they were prepared to rethink every single aspect in the continuum of the construction of an automobile. And they were prepared to say that if we can increment our way where we're 0.25% better here and 0.25% better here, that collectively will reinvent the car.
Sure.
Not that there's one single breakthrough. And the same could be said of the iPhone, the same could be said of what Jeff Bezos has done in retail. It's not one thing, it's lots of little things. And that requires a willingness to rethink a proposition in its entirety.
Sure. And then I think, and then once you have kind of like a version one, is to keep iterating on that, right? And progressively making it better. And the thing that I always found, just kind of to your Amazon thing, is like they dominate the online space, and now they're moving back into kind of the physical space with their like Go stores, where you literally just like, there's no cashier, you just like take something off the shelf and it just like automatically bills you with the items as you walk out of the store. Like,
Yeah.
so that to me is just completely fascinating, how somebody like him is kind of revolutionized kind of an online space and then moved back into the physical space.
Again, it's a willingness to rethink a proposition in its entirety. So for those people that aren't familiar with Amazon Go, they have piloted a supermarket where you walk into the supermarket. I think it's currently only available in Seattle and just to their employees. You walk into the supermarket and you scan your phone. So there's an identity associated with you and your credit card is on file. You're a Prime member, actually.
Sure.
And now, as you're walking around the store, Amazon has said there are all these interesting technologies if we stitch together. When you reach for that loaf of bread, there'll be a sensor. There's a camera. We have the ability to know, even if you put it in your own bag, that you took that bread. And if you put it back out on the shelf, actually they have a great video where it shows that you don't have the bread. And when you're done shopping, you just walk out of the store. There's literally no one there. What's interesting about that is they did have to invent new technologies for that, but they also leveraged a lot of existing technologies. It was a willingness to rethink what the experience would look like at a supermarket. And the irony is the people that have been building supermarkets forever have had all the time in the world to rethink what a supermarket experience is like. And they didn't need to develop a lot of the technologies for that from scratch. They could have stitched together. Of course, there's, there are missing pieces. There's glue that Amazon had to apply. But it required just a willingness to say, this is how this looks now. What could this look like in the future?
No, I think that's great. And I love that example, because that's kind of a big kind of up and coming thing that I think it seems kind of a little bit like the next revolution is a little bit is kind of going from, the software kind of web space, mobile space, back into the kind of the physical world. And I know you're kind of working on a series on the smart home. And I'm curious to know what you're kind of doing with that, and kind of your thoughts around what you're doing with that.
So the smart home sort of has this loose definition. Like a lot of us, when we think about what is in a smart home, people are aware of a Nest thermostat. You walk by and it notices you're there and it cools your house to the temperature you want, or it heats your home to the temperature you want. And we're now being exposed to all these other elements of a smart home. Could my blinds go up in the morning? Is my doorbell connected to the network? But the fundamental shift we'll see in a smart home. Right now, if you're a homeowner, a home is a place you take care of. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. It's a place you live and a place you take care of. In the future, a home will be a place that takes care of you.
Sure.
You'll walk up to the home. There'll be some retinal scan or some other biometric scan. It'll notice it's you. You'll enter the house. The house has some notion of a persona that's associated with you. It'll cool to the appropriate temperature. The right music will come on. Amazon just actually introduced a service where they'll deliver directly into your home while you're not there, put things in your refrigerator.
Which is cool, right?
Unbelievably cool. There'll be your food, which another study says in 5 to 10 years, 50% of the household staples you have will be auto-replenished. If your toilet paper's low, there'll be a sensor that says, send me more toilet paper. You won't have to think about it. Your refrigerator will be auto-replenished. Maybe you have a diet and you want to keep to that diet. And so the recipes in the cloud will be thought of ahead of time for you. Your refrigerator, as opposed to you thinking, what ingredients do I need, will be auto-replenished based on what it was that correlated with your diet.
Sure. Because Google's starting to do that a little bit, at least in my, I get in my home screen now. It's like, what recipes do you want? And it'll pop up now every once in a while, which is interesting, right?
Google asked me once, Do I run? Yes. How often do you want to run? And now I get these alerts from Google,
Sure.
run now, run now. And a lot of times very inconvenient times. But the whole home will become smart. So for example, the whole idea of setting an alarm. 20 years from now, you'll never set an alarm.
Yeah.
10 years from now, you'll never set an alarm. If you keep your calendar online, and it's on a Google Calendar or any of the other cloud-based calendars, and you have Sonos or some other artificial intelligence in the cloud, you would expect the alarm, and maybe the scenario is what's on my calendar for tomorrow is a spin class, and so the cloud can calculate my travel time to the spin class and knows the time it takes me to get dressed, and it'll just set my alarm like appropriately. And it'll know, because I'm playing my alarm through my Sonos speakers, it'll set it with a song. It'll know which song, I'm interested in listening to. There are vacuum cleaners today that you turn on and they don't require someone to push. Yep. So we're not that far from the vacuuming being done by itself. If you have a problem with a filter in your air conditioner, it sends a signal to the cloud. A serviceman comes. Your home can literally come to a place where it takes care of you. And so what I try to do is walk people through what that progression will look like, and then what are the opportunities for entrepreneurs within that.
Sure. No, I think that's fascinating to me. Like, I love, and I think some people will disagree with me, but I love the convenience of that stuff, right? Because when you don't have to think about those kind of everyday tasks, and if it's just kind of handled, for me, that it frees up so much time, and you almost like get back time, right? And I think that's the thing that at the core of all this stuff is, if you can get back people's time, people will pay almost an infinite amount of money for that, right?
Absolutely. We're in this very funny period of time where computers are designed to free your time. So if you don't use a typewriter, but you use a computer, it should save time, right? Mm-hmm. But the irony is that for most people, the complexity of a problem I'm having with my computer, or a problem I'm having with my parents' computer, or a problem I'm having with configuring an online service is taking me more time than it's saving. And the irony of the smart home is there's a likelihood that before we get to a place where your home really is taking care of you, there's nothing for you to think of. If you think you've got a problem now with just updating the operating system on your computer or dealing with spyware, when you have all of these devices, like your blinds are connected, your refrigerator is connected, your lock is connected, your cameras are connected, we are going to go through this period designed to free your time, which will first likely be a mess.
Sure.
And on the other side of the mess, yes, I do believe we will get to a place where it will dramatically save you time to think about things that matter, not about administering your home.
So how do you get people thinking about, or even yourself, about building a business around kind of the smart home of the future?
This podcast actually explores that in a number of series. But essentially, what's interesting about this space is this is not a space just for startups. Like, the biggest companies in the world are playing in the smart home space, right? GE, Philips, Honeywell, Lutron. And they're competing and cooperating with one another. And at the same time, you see immense excitement about startups that are launching products on crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter, right? And the reason for that is because this generation of startups in the smart home, not all, some are analytics, monitoring driven, don't have hardware components. But for those that do have hardware components, great opportunity to finance the business by looking to present it first in a Kickstarter video, right?
Sure.
So what I tell people is we're still in the first inning in the smart home space. And so there's always a way, I'm amazed at the products that you see on sort of the Kickstarter side of this, a white noise device to help me sleep at night. We barely scratched the surface of wearables that are that are monitoring, health components of me that'll be integrated with adjustments in the home. So for example, if I'm hot, it would be nice to adjust the temperature in the room based on literally what my body is experiencing at this moment. If I'm stressed, it might be interesting to adjust the music based on my stress, right? And then in my ideal world, you would measure the quality of my water, the quality of my air, and you present these things to me in real time. Step one, step two, you would actually adjust for them. I would have the appropriate filters that would adjust for these things. So, I think what I tell people is get smart. If the smart home space excites you, get smart. Be familiar with everything that's out there, and it's changing every single day. Listen to my podcast, which I get released, but maybe by the time this interview comes out, and find out what excites you. Like, I think this is true not just for smart homes. This is just generally true for entrepreneurs. Tell a story. Tell a story about what the future looks like for any entrepreneur. Describe a story. Don't worry so much about describing it in a business plan framework. Just describe a story and see first, the most important audience for that story is you. See whether you're excited by that story. And if you're excited by that story, then share it with others and see whether they get excited. Most importantly, check back with yourself and see if you're still excited.
Sure. And that costs nothing, right? Really, just maybe some time, but that's before you write a line of code.
That's before you write a line of code. Tell a story, write it down, tell it to yourself, see if it jazzes you, tell other people, see if it excites them. In the ideal world, it does. Even if it doesn't, if you're still excited after listening to their feedback, maybe you adjust. It's probably worth doing.
Sure. And then would you say, kind of to your earlier point, maybe wait like a couple of months and see if you're still passionate about it, then kind of pursue it? Or
most people, this is, a lot of people think entrepreneurs have better ideas. They were, somehow wired in a way that they were able to generate more ideas, or more exciting ideas. In my life, there are very few people I've ever met that didn't have at least one good idea worth doing. Sure. So it's the opposite of that. As opposed to only a few people come up with great ideas, I don't believe they're great ideas. They're good ideas. There's great execution, but there's good ideas. And then there are bad ideas. So you meet people that have bad ideas. Mm-hmm. The irony is most people either have good ideas or have ideas that if you fidgeted with, you could make good, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but the problem is most people never do anything about it. Yep. And one reason people never do anything about it is because when you come up with an idea and you don't see all the holes and all the warts, it sounds like it's the easiest thing in the world. But every business idea has challenges. And so as you begin to hear the challenges, it's very difficult to maintain your excitement. Sure. When you begin to hear, wow, that's going to cost more money than I thought. Wow, there's more competitors than I thought. Wow, it doesn't look like people will pay quite the way or the amount that I thought they would pay. When you hear all of these things, it's very easy to lose your excitement. And so that's why I say to people, it's not likely if you come up with an idea and you're thrilled about it over the weekend that that's the right idea for you at that moment in time, because you need to have some appreciation of all of the challenges.
No, I 100% agree. But sadly, we're out of time. So let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself, the boot camp, the podcast, and everything else you're kind of involved in.
Go to predictingourfuture.com.
Okay.
AndrewsRoadmaps.com. That's Andrews plural, roadmaps plural.com for the bootcamp.
Perfect, Andrew. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks, man. Bye. Thanks.